All right.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. We are Spirit of Wonder Group 3. My name is Carly. I am a junior in the College of Arts and Sciences studying history with a minor in sociology. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm going to have everyone else in my group also introduce themselves. Sydney, do you want to go?
So I'm Sydney. I'm a junior in the College of Arts and Sciences, majoring in neuroscience, and my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you.
My name is Rashad Nair. I'm majoring in economics and math, and I'm a current junior at Boston University. My pronouns are he, him, his.
My name is Vian. I'm a sophomore in the College of Arts and Science, majoring in biology, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Alrighty, thank you. So one of the things that we want you to keep in mind before we get into our presentation is that you're not the only person in your story. So as we go through, maybe think about like one person, whether it be a teacher, a parent, a sibling, even a stranger on the street maybe, who really impacted your story, impacted your trajectory in life, whether that be you were going to go somewhere else and you have to decide to go to a different school and that changed your life path. So that's something that we're going to focus on as we run through our interviewees. So interview one, interviewed by Vienne. Here's some bullet points around her, but we created timelines for each of our interviewees that we're gonna have each of them walk you through. So this is the first one.
Okay, so there's a whole lot on here, so I'm just gonna summarize what happened in his life. So my interviewee was born in Vietnam and he grew up there until when he was like 18. He used to live with his parents, and when he was younger, he aspired to be in business, like he aspired to be a businessman, like his family continued that legacy of selling clothes at the store. And but however, when he was 18, he started moving to America. And that was only possible because his parents supported him throughout his whole journey. If his parents didn't say yes to his decision, he wouldn't be here today. So his parents are the first people who are in his story. So now he studies at Bunker Hill Community College, majoring in engineering. He decided to be on this path because after he moved over here, he fell in love with science, math, building stuff. So that's why he was interested in engineering. And he stopped his family's footsteps. So when he grew older, he wished to do something with civil and environmental science. When he first came to America, it was kind of difficult for him because the weather was really different. So in Vietnam, it's usually really hot, but when he moved over here, it was during winter, so it was really cold for him, and he didn't get used to it. He also struggled with communicating with others when they talk too fast. Like even though he took some English courses in Vietnam, it wasn't as sufficient as he hoped it would be, and he also had trouble communicating with others. So when he moved over here, he lived with his aunt. His aunt is also the other part of like the other part of like important figure in his life. Like she lived with him. I mean, he lived with her, and she also provide him with the money and support for his education. But right now he moved out of her house, and he's now living on his own with a roommate, and he has to supply like he has to like how you say like make his own living expenses and cook for himself and all that kind of stuff. Like she doesn't have as much support from his aunt anymore. And like when he moved over here, he lived in a Vietnamese community, so it kind of made it like a bit easier since he can maneuver around the city and still speak to people with his own native language. After he went to school for a while, he got used to the culture here as well, and he started making friends. During his free time, he would explore the city of Boston and try out different cuisines from various restaurants with his friends. And His friends are the other people who are like important in his life, who's part of his story. And he's planning on getting his bachelor degree in Bunker Hill and then find a stable job and then continue his education from there. And he's planning on joining this OPT program to find a job and then possibly move back to Vietnam for further career opportunities.
Yeah, awesome. So Dan did a really good job at highlighting, say, his parents, his aunts, his friends, people that really impacted his experiences here. Our next interviewee is interviewed by Rashad, and I'm going to let him kind of run through their life as well.
Right. So okay. As the screen loads, I just want to say that my interviewee grew up in Russia. She grew up in Russia till the age of 14 and then was moved to a boarding school in Switzerland, where she studied in an American high school, in an American system, and then decided that she wanted to move to the United States to pursue a further education. Initially, she wanted to be an actress. A lot of people have lofty dreams as a child. And as she's making a decision to move into a college, choosing a major, her parents tell her that she has to decide quick and ask her and basically force her to choose journalism. Because apparently, according to them, she was not good at anything else. She didn't have too much of a voice of her own, especially because of parents were funding it. So she said, why not? And applied for journalism. Came to America and found the adjustment not too difficult. She spoke the language. She grew up in a country that was also cold and slightly warm in the summer, so she could adjust to the weather. And coming to America, the only thing that bothered her was that she didn't have too many friends initially because she was an international child and didn't socialize too much. Over the first year and a half, she decided that she found out that journalism wasn't her main passion. So she switched to PR, which is in the same College of Communications that Boston University offers, and didn't fall in love with subjects either. She thanks the BU Hub for making her career decision, as she was taking a psychology course and realized that that was what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. And soon things started to fall in place. She joined a sorority and she started meeting new people. She started having new interactions and talking about her. And whilst we were talking about her life, she told me that her life from the first 2 years changed completely to the third year. In the third year, where she was allowed to experience different cities. She would go to different places on the weekends, like Rockport and concerts before COVID, of course. And she would actually enjoy her life. Her social circle became huge as compared to the first year. And then she still decided that she wanted to pursue a career in acting as well on the side. So she takes acting courses sometimes in the College of Fine Arts. Her current scenario is that she's having a great time as compared to the first 2 years. She's loving her sorority life, and she's trying to make the most of what's left of her college term. And she's now deciding whether to pursue a course after graduation in America or Russia back home, so she can decide what to study or work instantly. And she admits that she's fallen in love with psychology.
Yeah, so as you can see, like her parents asking her to pursue a career in journalism is one of the really major points in her life and really helped her on her path to finding psychology and finding what worked best for her. My interviewee is up next. I'll open up my timeline. He was born in China and he went to school there through middle school, and he went to high school in California, and he stayed with 2 different host families. His host families were a major part of his experience in the United States. They are part of kind of his story. He still keeps in touch with them. One family worked really well for him, the other family not as much. But the first family, he will still call them on his birthday and stay in contact. Because in middle school he was involved in a lot of extracurriculars, it was his teacher and his family who encouraged him to really go to the United States and kind of pursue a path that encouraged that type of timeline of community service. He had traveled to Kenya, traveled to Mexico, and did a lot of community service through his religion. And he said to me when he was a kid that in 5th grade, he wanted to grow up to be like Warren Buffett. And he wants to kind of help adults work through and find their passion. So even when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, that you can still find things that really drive you. He foresees that his challenges as he continues down his path is that people might not believe in him or might not trust him because he's an international student. And he also kind of feels disconnected from his family back home and his friends back home. He feels like the system's different. It doesn't really make them have the same drive that he does. He's currently a religion and public relations major at BU, and he loves community service and helping people. He loves music, he loves to chat with prospective students, but he really is on the path of kind of pursuing the things that are really passionate to him and finding other people find that passion. But as you can see, his family and his parent and his teacher who helped him push him to be in the United States really changed his path. And this is Sydney, and I'll let her walk through her interviewee.
All right, so for my interviewee, she was born in El Salvador, and she grew up there with her mothers and siblings until she was 17. She lived in a rural town up in the mountains of Chalatenango, and she attended high school in El Salvador up until her sophomore year, and she crossed the border at around age 17 to be with her mother. Initially, like, her reason for going was she missed her mom so much, and being in El Salvador was hard without having a parental figure, and so she went to go be with her mother. And so when she first arrived in the US, she was just working to provide for her other siblings and to work alongside her mother. But she always knew that she wanted to pursue business and business administration. She just wasn't entirely sure how to go about getting into the education system in the US. So in terms for her career path, her mother inspired her the most in her decision to go into business. She worked alongside her mother for her first few years as a young adult, and she always knew that one day she wanted to own her own business, which she did. But coming to America, she did face some level of cultural shock. She mostly came because she missed her mother and because of her safety, because where she grew up, it wasn't necessarily the safest town. And because it wasn't safe, she could no longer attend school. So she just knew that she might have more opportunities in terms of education when she moved to the US. But she struggled the most with understanding how to get her education in the US and how she could possibly pursue her interest in business. But she believed it was her passion. When it came to her experience, she really enjoyed being in the US, although it was super different from El Salvador. She just really enjoyed learning the language. She spent every time after work, she would go home and she would just watch TV shows. She'd study books. And I remember her telling me, saying that she would just laugh at TV shows, even when she didn't understand why they were laughing, because she said that was just part of learning the language. But she really enjoyed being in the US. And currently, she has some experience in owning a business, and she continues to enjoy creating and selling something she believes in. And she continues to be passionate about pursuing her higher education in business and business administration, so that she can better understand how to go about running her own future businesses.
Awesome, thank you. So in thinking about what our project is, we kind of ask these questions of, how do family and community impact the lives of international students? What challenges do they face? And are there any significant differences between the interviewees? But before we do that, we want to go back to our original question. When you heard these stories, did you find that person in your story? Was it your parent? Was it your sibling? I know for me, a lot of my decisions as a kid, doing volleyball, becoming an ice skater, are from my siblings. And so they're a major part in my story. We'd like you to think about that as we continue. The influencing of what happened, of pursuing their studies in the United States. You can found the connection their host families or describe their mom challenges. We found that language barriers were a particular challenge for the international students we talked to. Interview 2 reflected that there was a really hard time in the beginning in classes because it was hard to do well in classes when you don't have a strong grasp on the language. But we also found that cultural barriers, having that idea of culture shock, of coming to a new place and like being like, oh, wait, I don't match. This doesn't work out for me here. I know interview 3 talked about how he felt disconnected from his home friends because there was now a different culture. He was immersed in a different place and realized that he was evolving differently. And that kind of brings us to the end of our findings and our research. I know we'd love to reflect kind of on what this experience was like for us. And so Rashab's going to kind of walk us through kind of our reflection as well.
Right. Before we end, we just want to thank everyone on the group's behalf, Professor Scott, Professor Bank, and everyone from the Spirit of Wonder group. We just want to say that this has been an opportunity for the whole group and everyone in our class to actually get in tune with people coming from abroad, studying in the United States, understand their background. And we worked as a team, built our team working skills. We've understood our own pitfalls, our own skills, understood how to work as a team. And I think that's been the greatest benefit from this whole experience. Obviously, we can have our insights from the group and understand that people coming from different parts of the world are impacted differently. We can relate it to our own experiences. And that's the biggest thing that we can take away. We can understand how cultural barriers, language barriers, and how someone coming from halfway across the world can feel at home or can feel completely disconnected based on how he grew up, what his community around him taught him, and how he acted whilst coming into the States. And we've understood that there are a number of factors that can impact a person's decision on their careers, on their school paths. And it's been a great experience as a whole. I think the whole team can allude to the fact that we've genuinely learned a lot about other people, learned a lot about ourselves. And we thank you all for the opportunity to embark on this journey.
Awesome. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you.
Any questions? Anything I can help you out with?
Excellent job. I'll open it up to our panel to see if any of them have questions. I've noticed 1 or 2 yes. First, actually, we can go to our reaction button and we can give digital reactions, which are always fun to do. Great job, guys. We really enjoyed that. So let's see. I do begin to see some folks that are interested in questions. Ariana?
Yes, I just want to say great job. I really enjoyed it. I love the diversity of the subjects. I do want to know a little bit more about the recruitment strategy, seeing that, you know, the pool was just so diverse. Can you walk me through that a little bit more?
I'm so sorry, you cut out in the middle. I heard about walking through the diverse pool.
Yeah, can you walk me through the recruitment strategy? I want to kind of get a little bit more familiar with that if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, we decided that we all wanted to have a part in the project of like all being able to experience the process of interviewing, of doing the transcriptions and all that. So we sort of reached into our own networks of people. We found the people around us that were international students, the people maybe you took a class with but you aren't really friends with, but you're like, oh, I have your number and I know that this is your experience and I'd love to talk to you more about it for this project. And that was sort of the in general thing. We also then exchanged who was who. So I wouldn't interview my own network, Rashab would interview my person, and vice versa.
Excellent, thank you. To the rest of the panel, if you do unmute yourself, then I'll probably know that you have something to say. I'll ask the next question. Team, how did you come up initially with the timeline idea itself? What was your inspiration for coming up with the timeline idea?
Okay, I'll take this one. I think the timeline is a great representative of how someone like grows up. I think anyone who's in college right now can say they're completely different from the person that they were at the start currently. And what we realize is there are a number of factors that can affect someone's life throughout, whether it be through childhood or the teens or the late teens or right before college. We realized that that could give a good indication as to what how a student has been impacted by a certain number of factors. Like I said, when I was my interviewee at 14, she realized that she wanted to pursue an American education, but only at the end of it, her parents told her, okay, right before applications, you're going to apply for journalism because we don't think you're good at anything else. Whereas other interviewees in our group were told like, I want to do well in business, and I want to charter my own career in the business and financial field. So around 13, 14, she's starting to cultivate her own interests and work on it. So we found a number of factors to say that everyone has their own different timelines and everyone is impacted differently. And in the end, we're all in the same pool, but have different starting points and different journeys that impacts the whole, our whole life.
Excellent, Rashad. Thank you. Anyone else on the team wanted to add to that?
I wanted to ask how you frame your questions and how you decide what questions you want to ask. I'm a little curious.
Yeah, I think basically we all did our interviews and like we kind of talked to them, and then we went through each of our transcripts and tried to pick out common themes. So as you can see, family was a common theme in all of our interviewees. So it just made sense that we would ask about how families were interacting with our interviewees and how that made sense for them. We also during class did a like together annotated bibliography, and that helped kind of come together and like focus in on what other people were doing. So in terms of research questions, what are connecting to international students at large? Rashad, do you have anything to add to our process there?
No, I think you covered it well, because once we can get the base with research questions and understand where we're coming from, then we can really direct an interview the way we'd like. Even if they're not as open, we can try and get into the nitty-gritties of who impacted your life, or like, was it family, or did a certain class make you decide this? So once you create that solid background of like, what do you want to ask and where do you want to go with the questions, I think it makes for the whole interview process to be far simpler.
Okay,
Very
that
good.
made great sense to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Mingdi. Dr. Chen.
Yeah, so I just have a question. I noticed, I mean, each one of you have your personal interviewee. So, but you also present as a group. So how much support do you get from group members, and what is coordination process?
We had a WhatsApp group that was sort of our primary way of communicating with each other, sort of constantly checking in. I know like I took a big lead on the report, and so Rashab took a big lead on the creative deliverable. And it was a good way of kind of keeping each other in check. And then VN would check in and be like, hey, do you guys need any more help with anything? Or things like that. We sort of set the precedent of checking in with each other, making sure that you're on deadline, making sure you're doing the right things, so that you have enough like freedom and mobility to kind of do what is best for the group. But the WhatsApp chat was sort of our best way of communicating and checking in on each other.
I also like to add that like whenever we stumble across a certain problem, like each member would check in with each other and like ask, oh, do they need help? And like I know that Carly tried to help me once when I didn't have my computer and stuff to focus on my creative project. So she asked me if I need help. And then with the report, like, oh, I kind of asked like, oh, do you guys want me to change this and that to make the report better? So like we have our end product, and like Carly would look over it, and then Rishab and Sydney would also like help each other on the creative processes as well. So like that's one way we keep in touch with each other, like ask, oh, do you need help with this or that?
Great teamwork, thank you.
Thank you very much, team. I think that we are very appreciative of your work and have learned a lot from you. Maybe one final question that I have. Rashab, you mentioned that you learned some things about yourself as well as about the interviewers. What were the ways in which your project sort of caused you to learn more about yourselves?
I can speak from personal experience and the group. Personally, I'm an international student. It made it sort of easier to talk to someone from the same background, whether it's someone from India like myself or Russia, like my interviewee, and how family and culture is completely different in one country as compared to another. So I learned the things that they've experienced, like the language barrier wasn't something that affected me. However, a culture shock where people are completely different in one part of the country as compared to the other, speaking different languages and then coming here and speaking only one, it's completely different. The food, the weather, and you learn a lot about other people. And then when you're learning how and you're speaking to them, you understand, I went through that. I had the exact same experience. Or even if I'm an American, I remember I was speaking to Carly completely outside the realm of this class. And I was just like, I had this great conversation with my interviewee. And even though like it got a bit deep and emotional, we started speaking about how you can feel completely lonely in college, and you can, even though you're halfway across the world, you can feel completely at home with a click of a button, you're FaceTiming your parents. And Carly alluded to the fact that she was speaking to her friends, and she could be living about half an hour from her family and still feel alone. So we had these experiences that even though you're an international student or a in-state student, you can have these similar experiences, and you can feel alone, you can feel great. And it's a number of factors that affect it. So it's not only because you're international. So you find that you find all of that about yourself, and then you can relate to the fact, and it opens your eyes to a number of new experiences.
So really opportunity to really feel your humanity and see the commonality amongst it, even though very different circumstances. Very much. Thank you very much. Any closing comments before we shift? Then I'll close by
Just
saying
to thank you for the opportunity and thank you for listening.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Vien. Thank you, Sydney and Rashab. We really appreciate your effort. Team members, as you're presenting, if you guys have any final comments, if we're able to at the very end, we can certainly will be debriefing and having general comments about this experience overall. So, Dr. Bank, I think we're ready for another group.